In today's video, we're gonna make this woodworking bench out of inexpensive materials that won't break the bank. The top is going to be durable, dead flat, and will also be able to scrape dry glue off of this, no problem. It will also be able to accommodate bench dogs, bench hooks, plane stops, holdfasts, and so much more. Now this is not a Roubo woodworking bench by any stretch of the imagination, but it will be able to keep up with one. So let's make something cool. Well, it is that time of year where it is just too cold outside to do any exterior projects. So we are going to switch gears over to interior projects this winter, and what better project to start with than a woodworking bench. Now, I made this bench probably over 15 years ago, and it's been great, and there's actually very little I would change about this bench. But let's be honest, it's seen better days. So I thought it would be a great idea to not only rebuild this bench, but give the design a little bit of a refresh, make it look a little cooler, and work a little harder. Now, we're still gonna make the base out of 2x4s, but I don't want it to look like it was made out of 2x4s. We're still gonna make the top out of MDF, but we're gonna make it look a little cooler, a little bit more badass. We're gonna add some more dog holes to it. We're gonna give it 2 clamps instead of just 1. It'll also be made out of inexpensive materials so that we can beat on it all day long and not even give a damn. And we're still gonna have plenty of room for storage underneath, but with so much potential for future upgrades. So let's get to work. We are going to start with the bench top, which is 2 sheets of 3/4 inch MDF laminated together. Best part is that you can get the top and the bottom shelf done with 1 full sheet of MDF. And what I've done here so far is fairly simple. After I rough cut the 2 top pieces, I pre-drilled a bunch of holes that are about 5 to 6 inches apart. That way, after I laminate the pieces with just regular wood glue, I can screw the pieces together, and this will help clamp until the wood glue dries. But when I laid out my grid, I stayed about 1 inch away from all the sides. Then I laid out the rest of the grid within that perimeter. A helpful tip: before you pre-drill the holes, I would definitely clamp the 2 pieces together so that they don't move. Then go ahead, pre-drill all your holes. Then after that, I just spread out my glue, and I actually like to use a cheap foam roller for this. It's quick, it's easy, and I can actually rinse that foam roller out and reuse it. After that, I clamped the 2 pieces together again, and I screwed them together with just some 1.25 inch drywall screws. Now, I did not worry about the placement of the drywall screws in relation to the dog holes that I'm going to bore out, because after the glue has dried and cured, I'm just going to take these screws out because we don't need them at that point. But before I do that, I want to flush up all the sides and bring them to their final dimensions using the table saw and a circular saw for the ends. And after I get all 100 of these screws out, we can move on to the next step. Now, this next part, you do not have to do this, completely optional, but I wanted this project to be just a little bit more durable and look a little bit more badass. So I got a hold of some flat black Formica, which incidentally, a very good friend of mine works at Formica, and he actually sent me this roll. And coincidentally, he's actually one of my patrons. Which, by the way, have you met my awesome patrons? Rick also has a YouTube channel called Small Project Central. You need to check it out because he makes some pretty awesome projects. I always forget how awful contact cement smells. I really should be wearing a mask right now. I don't know if you've ever laminated Formica or done any kind of laminate in general, but with contact cement, it is so super imperative that you put these cull sticks down so that you can line the sheet up before you permanently stick it down. Because once these 2 surfaces touch, that's it. There ain't no going back. Alright, things seem safe enough. I like to start from the middle and work my way out. I don't have a proper J roller, so you gotta make do with what you got. Alright, now all we gotta do is get a trim router and trim this up with a flush trim bit. Now that I've got my top all laminated, now it's time to lay out the dog hole locations, and I've done that with painter's tape and a pen. By the way, all the dimensions will be in the plans, which will be available in the description below. Now, when I drilled the dog holes for my old bench, I did it by hand with the drill and a Forstner Bit, but this time I got a hold of this awesome drill guide from Rockler, and I'm very excited because this is going to keep my dog holes nice and plumb. And then I also got this guide. This guide doesn't come with it, but I got this guide in addition so that I can keep my locations nice and consistent. Now, I don't know if you guys know about Rockler, but Rockler is a great resource for products and advice for not only well-seasoned woodworkers, but for the regular DIYer as well. Oh my god, but seriously, you have got to get yourself one of these. Obviously, you don't need this to complete this task, but it has made this so much easier, and not only am I getting a much accurate, clean, plumb hole with it, you can also get yourself this really cool dust collection accessory, and the dust collection is awesome. Awesome! It makes it so easy because it has these alignment marks right here to where all I have to do is align them with the marks that I've made, and I can just go ahead and drill and not worry about anything else. But I seriously didn't know how much I needed one of these drill guides until I got one. Now that I've got all my dog holes drilled, the last thing I want to do with this top is I want to go around and break all the sharp corners with a very slight 45. Well, now that the top is done, we are going to move on to the base, and we are going to accomplish this with 7 2x4s. Now, besides the knots, one of the biggest telltale signs of 2x4 are these rounded corners. So we are going to mill all those off and give us some nice square edges, but before we do that, we're going to go through and cut all of our parts to size first on the chop saw. Now I'm going to rip off about 1/8 of an inch on both sides of every single one of these 2x4s, and not only that will give us a nice square edge, but it will give us nice square corners as well. At the end of this, we're going to have finished dimensions of 1.5 inch thickness by 3 1/4 inch width. Alright, now that we've got all those tacky rounded corners all ripped off of all of our boards, we're going to set aside our rails and our sides for now and focus our attention to the legs and the feet and gluing these together. But before we do that, we're going to take these over to the thickness planer and deal with that. For the legs and the feet, we are going to be taking 2 boards and laminating them together to make 3x3s basically. Now obviously we could have bought 4x4s and milled them down, no problem. You absolutely can do that, but I didn't do that for 2 reasons. One reason is that 4x4s, they tend to be on the pink side since they're cut from the center of the tree. 2, it's actually a lot cheaper to glue 2 2x4s together than it is to buy 1 4x4. Now I'm going to run all the surfaces through the planer that are going to get glue to make for a really good glue surface. Now this is not super necessary, but I have a planer, so I'm going to use it. Now I'm just going to glue up and laminate the feet and legs together. And I know you hear this all the time, but you can never have enough clamps. Never. Now that the feet and the legs are dry and out of the clamps, I'm going to run them through the planer down to their final dimensions. But I'm going to make the legs 1/4 inch smaller than the feet to give us this nice subtle 1/8 inch shadow line on each side. Now I'm going to work on the tenons on the rails and the sides, and in order to accomplish this, I'm going to use my stack dado set. I'll set the dado blade to 3/8 of an inch, and the tenons will be 3/8 long. But you absolutely do not need a dado blade set in order to do this. It just might take you a little longer, that's all. While my dado blades are still installed, I'm going to hit the tenons on the bottom of all 4 legs. Same depth, only these tenons are going to be 1.5 inches long. Now it's time to work on the mortises on the legs to accept the rails and the side tenons. To make things easier on myself, I made myself this quick and easy router template. I've taken some thin material, cut out an oversized hole. I've taken these small pieces of 1/2 inch stock, put double-sided tape on the other side, and butted them against the actual tenon. I know this is a very different way of going about making a template, but it's quick, easy, and super accurate. Also, to help with alignment, I made a center mark on the template, which will line up with my layout marks on the actual parts. Then I just attach them with double-sided tape. Then I simply router out the mortise with a template bit. But before I remove the template, I found it very helpful to use the template as a guide as I chiseled out the rounded corner square. This helped me keep the chisel nice and plumb. But seriously, you would not believe how perfect these tenons fit in this mortise just because of this silly little template. Now we're going to turn our attention to the feet mortises to accept the leg tenons. But in order to get the most accurate layout of the mortises, I dry fit the side assemblies first, then use the actual tenons to lay out the mortises. And to make things easier on myself, I hogged out most of the material with a 3/4 inch Forstner Bit. And again, made another one of my silly templates and attached it with double-sided tape. But since this mortise was so deep, I had to hit it in 3 passes. Now, of course, again, I chiseled the mortise corners square, but don't forget, with mortise and tenons, you can either chisel the mortise corner square, or you can actually round off the corners of the tenons. Dealer's choice. To me, using a chisel is one of the most euphoric and relaxing parts of woodworking. Speaking of woodworking, I need a favor from you. I want to make more woodworking videos like this one and get them out into the world. Now, I never ask you guys to like and subscribe to this channel, and I'm not about to start now. But this winter, I'm looking to expand this channel's reach into the woodworking community, and I plan on doing that by hitting the woodworking videos hard this winter, because I really want to make a mark and share what I have to offer as far as woodworking videos are concerned. So please, if you could, share this video with somebody that you know would enjoy it. Now that the mortise and tenons are all done at this point, I'm going to drill the hole in the feet for the 1/2 inch dowel rod. And of course I'm going to do that with a 1/2 inch Forstner Bit. And you don't have to do this, but of course, to make sure that the holes are laid out accurately on both sides, I made this, again, a quick little template. Now I'm going to cut a simple 45 on the ends of both feet to give the base some visual interest. Now we have to drill the corresponding dowel holes in the tenons of the legs. And the best way to accurately locate the holes is to dry fit the tenons in the mortises and use the Forstner Bit to center punch it. But we are going to move the center of the hole up about a 32nd, no more than a 1/16 of an inch, towards the shoulder of the tenon, so that the holes will be offset by a smidge. So when we drive in our dowels, this is going to pull the shoulder of the tenon into the feet, making for a nice tight joint. Now the last thing we need to do to the feet is to cut out this relief on the bottom. And I'm going to start by clamping them together and drilling a hole on both sides with a 1-inch Forstner Bit. Now the tricky part is to remove the rest of this waste, and I chose to do this on the table saw, and I had to do it in 2 passes on both sides. Now I'm sure there's all sorts of different ways you can remove this waste, but if you choose to do it on the table saw, please be careful. Now you'll find it very helpful to mark both ends of the blades, so that way you know where the stop and start point is of your table saw blade. Otherwise, you might end up going too far and this happens. Then I just finished the cutoff with a pull saw and sanded it on my drum sander. Now that our feet are looking really good, we can move on to the last step before we assemble everything, and that's drilling the hole for the bolts. To make the base extra sturdy, I've designed it so that we can attach the rails and the sides to the legs with 3/8/16 bolts. Now, in order to do this without the bolts running into each other, we have to offset the holes. I'm starting with the 1-inch counter bore set at 3/8 of an inch depth to accept the 1-inch washers. By drilling the counter bore first, this makes it much easier to relocate the center of the hole when I drill out the 3/8 spade bit through hole. And now, of course, we have to drill the 3/8 holes in the ends of the rails and the sides. And again, the best way to locate these holes is by dry fitting all the parts together and center punching them with either the spade drill or a brad point drill bit. Now, since I can move my base to accommodate for longer stock, I'm going to drill the hole on my drill press to make sure that I have a nice, accurate, straight hole. Now, of course, if you are confident enough that you can drill a nice, straight enough hole, by all means, just go ahead and drill it by hand. And of course, whatever other means that you have available to you to drill a nice straight hole. Alright, I'm gonna be honest with you, this part really pissed me off because we need to drill for an anchor point. For when this bolt goes through, we need a nut on the other end here to catch it. I thought that we could just simply get ourselves a cross dowel nut, drill a hole in here, and be done with it. But for some reason, they do not make cross dowel nuts for 3/8 bolt threads. Don't know why. So instead, we are going to have to do just a washer and a nut on this and mill out a slot to make room for the washer and the nut. And of course, I made another quick template to make layout a breeze. So we're going to do that with a 3/4 inch Forstner Bit. Piece of cake. The dowels themselves are simply 1/2-inch dowel rod cut into 3.5-inch sections with a chamfer belt sanded on one end. Alright, all of our parts are drilled, milled, cut, and ready to go for final assembly, but it is best practice and a good habit to get into to do a complete dry fit before final assembly. Make sure that nothing needs to be milled down or shaven down. Doing this will ensure that you're going to have a very smooth final assembly. But one more thing before final assembly, I want to make sure I take this opportunity to sand all my parts. Sanding will go so much smoother if you sand each part individually while it's disassembled. I'm also going to take this opportunity to break all the sharp corners with a very, very slight 45. Not only will this break the sharp corners, but it will give it this nice, subtle, attractive detail. It's time to do some assembly. But how are we going to attach the top to the base? Well, I'm glad you asked. So another very good friend of mine, Philip Miller, came up with and developed this great adjustable mortise jig and tenon fastening system. And the kit even comes in this great case to keep everything together. And what it is, well, first, it's all about these great heavy-duty mounting brackets. And they come in different sizes. These are 4x4s, this is a 6x6, but what we're going to do is we are going to mount this bracket on the top of our base, specifically on the top of our legs, screw them in from the top, It also comes with this pilot centering bit, which I think is very handy to have. Then we're going to flip the top over and then use this adjustable jig for the router. And it has 3 adjustments, 4-inch, 5-inch, and 6-inch. And we're gonna temporarily mount this jig underneath our top and then use this pattern bit that it actually comes with to mill out a pocket for our hardware to actually hide in. And we'll never see it or know it's there. But I'm so very proud of my friend that he developed this all on his own, and this is available for sale. I'm gonna leave a link in the description below. Now, unfortunately, I am gonna have to modify this just a little bit because this jig has tabs right here because it's actually meant to make a flush mount on all the outer corners. Now, I kind of want to put mine on the inside, so I'm just gonna get rid of these tabs real quick. I'm so sorry, Phil. Please forgive me. Check out this mounting hardware. You can't see it, you would never know it was there unless you look underneath. even when you do see it from underneath, you still can barely tell, and it still looks streamlined. Check this out. I think it looks pretty good. I mean, for all intents and purposes, the bench is done. It's just, we want to do some things to make the bench work harder for us. For instance, I'm going to install a bench vise on the front right, and then a bench vise over here on the side left. And I'm also going to make some culls for those vices with holes that correspond with these dog holes. By the way, I picked up these bench vices for like 30 bucks on Amazon. Not expensive at all. Link in the description. Also, I want to finish the base with a wipe-on oil-based polyurethane. I'm going to go with satin. My patrons are actually the ones that chose the finish for the base, and I think it's a good choice. It looks great and it's simple. Oh, I forgot. I got to cut and fit the bottom shelf real quick. And she's finally done. I mean, this bench has got everything I need, and then some. Starting with a nice, strong, durable top that not only I can beat on, but since it's laminate or Formica, I can scrape dry glue off of this after my glue ups. No problem. And not only do we have plenty of holes for our bench dogs, we've got a vise stationed here for the shorter stuff, but we can still chuck up stuff up to 30 inches on this side. And for the longer stuff, we can actually chuck up long stock up to 80 inches along this side. And our woodworking vise may be inexpensive, but we can chuck things up at any angle we want. Also, I just thought of something. How hard would it be to just throw in a sliding dead man right here? Why didn't I do that? And of course, it also accommodates our holdfasts. And a few other accessories that you can make to make your bench work harder for you is just a simple bench hook. And a simple plane stop, which I've made mine with 1/4-inch stock and some 3/4-inch dowels. And if we go down below, we have this very attractive base that was made out of cheap 2x4s. And I set out to make a base that doesn't look like it was made out of 2x4s, and I think that I accomplished that. It's extremely strong and sturdy. We got these great feet down here that don't look like they were thrown together. and they're gonna stand the test of time. We even threw in a little bit of simple joinery to kind of fool people into thinking that we know what we're doing. As far as the bottom shelf is concerned, this is obviously nothing special, but it lends itself to so many different possibilities and upgrades. You can either just stuff this full of stuff to store things. Me personally, I'm going to be doing 2 sets of cabinets with many drawers, different sizes. I'm also going to do 1 big drawer on the bottom here so that we don't waste any space, but that'll be for another video, another day. And I am very happy with this bench. So the plans and the dimensions for this bench will be available in the link in the description below, along with the materials list. And I will see you in the next video.